Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Hey, welcome back to the Daily Truth Report, everybody. We are truly live right now, and up on the screen you can see we've got an old friend back on the show. I'm so excited to have him back on. Lloyd Brunson, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, Noah. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure, as always. Really enjoy getting the chance to chat with you, and I'm very excited to get the update on where everything's at. Things are not dead. Things are still out there. We'll talk about that in a minute, but before we get going, we are truly live here. We're on Twitter, X, we're on Rumble, we're on YouTube. So if you're watching this, we're going to open this up, make it interactive. If you have some questions for Lloyd, we'll try and get those in. You can drop them in the chat as we go. And actually, I always love to just have people chime in. Let me know if you're seeing this okay, if you're hearing us. I want to make sure we're connected everywhere. Just drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. That's always fun to see if we can get all 50 states represented. A lot of times we do. And also, if you hit the like button and the share button, that will help tell the algorithm that this is something people care about and they want to see, and it'll get it out to more people. So that's what I want to. That's my main mission today. I want to get Lloyd's message out to everybody. There are still things that you can do to help with this. We'll talk about those in a minute. But we want to get this as far as we can. The fight is not over, peacefully and patriotically, of course. But we're 9 days away from the election. And there is so much to do before the election and after the election. And I think Lloyd and his brothers are going to play a big part of that. So, all right, I'm seeing people pop in. Hello to Robert from North Carolina. Hello to Dora from Alabama. All right, that's great. We got more people over on Rumble and YouTube. Okay, looks like we're connected. So, Lloyd, let me turn it over to you because that's what people are here for. They want to hear from you. I thought maybe if we could, I know a lot of people know you and your brothers, but probably a lot of people don't. And I was wondering if we could just do a quick summary, if you could try and, so much has happened, but if you can try and summarize the last couple of years about how everything got started here. What did you guys do to kick this off? You're not attorneys, but you're making history in the Supreme Court. Can you walk me through the history, and then we'll talk about what comes next?
Yeah, sure. The 2020 election, the lawsuit is a federal lawsuit. It's actually a personal damage claim. And one of my brothers has had extensive experience filing documents and lawsuits in court. And he's not a lawyer. And he was pretty upset that Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and 140 some odd other members of Congress didn't receive the support they should have received to take a simple 10-day pause to investigate the mountain of evidence that warranted an investigation. Just a simple 10-day pause. It had happened before, in history, and actually had affected the outcome. And so all of the members of Congress and others that participated, high-profile people that participated in pushing back against that wouldn't allow that to happen, we decided to bring a federal lawsuit against and a state lawsuit. So we had two lawsuits going. And both of them made it to the Supreme Court. And mine is a special historical one because it was an appeal to the Supreme Court based on the Supreme Court's Rule 11, which allows you, if they decide that it is of imperative public importance, they'll let you bypass a normally required court. Now, the last time a Rule 11 was even allowed to be filed was in the 70s by the U.S. government. So this is a long shot. And never in the court's history have they filed an appeal to the Supreme Court under their Rule 11 for someone that is representing themselves, which in my case is me. And so when they filed that and docketed it, we were pretty excited and pretty blown away, allowing us to go right to the Supreme Court and not waste time at the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, we've had some breakthroughs with this. First of all, I'd like to mention that when the Supreme Court denies a hearing, they denied mine twice, actually. The second one, they denied without a conference, which is pretty weird. But when they deny a hearing, it goes on the shelf, and they can bring it back off the shelf anytime they choose, anytime they feel like it's necessary to do that. And this case being one of imperative public importance is like a very important part of their arsenal that they can use, that they can execute. And so it is there. And so one of the breakthroughs that we had with this federal lawsuit is that when you bring action against the government, which mine was for damages, you cannot file it in state or federal court. Attorneys won't let you do that. You have to get permission from the government to sue the government. And so we knew that that was wrong, and so we used the state constitution and the Constitution of the United States as the legal documentation, legal authority showing the federal court that we had a right to be there. I had a right to be there as the plaintiff. Now, the federal court in this battle unfiled my case twice. As a matter of fact,
what year would that be, Lloyd? What year are we talking when you're in
well,
this?
March 31st, 2022, the U.S. Marshal Service was ordered by the Federal Court of Utah to start serving my defendants, serving the lawsuit. The U.S. Marshal Service, the docket shows that on March 31st, 2022, the U.S. Marshal successfully served my summons and complaint on about 84 defendants, which include Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Maxine Waters, and about 81 others. Now, the next day, the federal court showed that it had been recalled, and they claimed that it was a mistake and that my complaint was deficient. So we decided to bring action against the Federal Court of Utah and to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, what is called a writ of mandamus, complaining that the federal court was violating my due process right protected by the Constitution. And so the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, after deliberating for quite a while, 3 justices have to decide, and they decided that they weren't depriving me of my right and that they weren't stopping me and that they were just backlogged. It's like, we couldn't believe it. It's like, read the docket. It was unfiled, right? So that allowed us to bring action against the Federal Court of Utah and the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals to state court, which we did. We sued those 2 federal courts in state court. And it was amazing that the state court actually allowed us to file the case. And we started going back and forth with documents. And my brother had an additional case that the U.S. attorneys actually referenced this case of the 2 federal courts and admitted wrongdoing. And so we used that information to file a full summary judgment motion, which means you have an opportunity to skip a trial. You have so much evidence of wrongdoing that you can skip a trial. So we battled there for a while with the U.S. attorneys. The U.S. attorneys even complained that the judge was taking too much time on hurting both us and them. And so after we battled there, we lost, but we won because a few weeks later, the Federal Court of Utah notified me that they had reversed their decision and decided to do what I was suing them to do and move forward by ordering the chief clerk of the Federal Court of Utah to issue 388 summonses. So it went forward, and that's the case that made it to the Supreme Court after that battle. So we've been able to break through the federal court in suing a government agency or a government officer without going to a special claims court. So that's now legal authority, and a precedent has been set there, and even by the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court could have rejected it too. They could have said, hey, this is in the wrong court. You can't sue a government official unless you go to a special claims court. So the fact that the Supreme Court of the United States allowed it to be filed is pretty monumental to us.
Oh, yeah, that absolutely is. Our guest today is Lloyd Brunson, one of the famous 4 Brunson brothers. Real quick, everybody listening, I'm getting a little feedback in my audio here. Will you drop me a comment? Let me know if it's okay for you, or if it's just on my end, that's fine. But everything Lloyd is saying is so important that I want you to hear him clearly. So please let me know if you're hearing any feedback in your audio as you listen to this. The other thing I want to say is these things get shared and chopped up and posted everywhere, and sometimes you see Loy on TV and you're like, well, is this a new interview or is this old? I just want to say, as we start here, today is October 27th of 2024, so we are 9 days away from the election. Loy is giving us the history of how we got here, and then we're going to talk about what comes next, because this thing is not over by a long shot. So there we go. Today is 10/27 of 24. This is brand new, and we are so happy to have Loy back on with us. So all right, Loy, you were talking about the triumph and even being able to bring this case and then get it validated about suing the government. And you've got 2 cases, yours and your brother. So that'd be your brother, Rayland, correct?
Roland, yeah.
Roland, okay. So you got are both cases as we sit here today still pending, or
Now, every single case that goes to the Supreme Court, there's an option where they can bring it off the shelf. So even though it's denied a hearing, it's still the Supreme Court can do something with it. People don't understand that. It's not dead. No.
Got it.
So his is there and mine is there as well. Mine's the Rule 11, and his would have been, but it didn't need to be. So
wow,
it's there, and we have a letter campaign now. Last August 19th, President Trump supported the letter campaign, and the letter campaign is about showing the Supreme Court support in doing something with these cases or case. And so for him to do that was amazing. And the letter campaign is still going. We're reaching close to 100,000 people that have sent letters to the Supreme Court with copies to us. They can do it digitally at lloydbrunson.com, where it turns into a physical individual letter with postage, or they can just download the letter and add their own message to it and send us a copy and send the Supreme Court a copy as well. But it's so important that America becomes aware. Most people don't know this has even happened. The Supreme Court case, it's a petition for writ of certiorari, it's the appeal, is really an expose on the Constitution and the required oath. Article 6 of the Constitution is very clear, demanding that the oath be binding. The words are, they shall be bound by oath to this Constitution. Now, the U.S. attorneys, in defending their defendants, have claimed absolute immunity. Well, you can't have both. You can't have absolute immunity and a binding oath. And as America wakes up to that, I believe that is the Achilles heel. So every single letter that is going to the Supreme Court is hitting that Achilles heel and exposing what needs to be exposed. And so for the Supreme Court to really do something, they need public support. It's very important.
yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure we'll get. You've got a couple different websites. We'll get those links down below, and I want to talk even more about that in just a minute. But so I want to go back to this case that's sitting at the Supreme Court right now. It can be pulled off the shelf at any time. And, this is just my speculation, but we heard Elon Musk say the other day when he was asked about, when can we finally see some movement on these issues? And he implied that he had a mountain of evidence from when he bought Twitter. Basically, he released the first episode of the Twitter files back when he bought it, but he really implied that he had a lot more that he hadn't released yet, and he was waiting until President Trump got into office. And, it's pure speculation, but I just wonder if the Supreme Court might be waiting for that moment as well to pull your case off the shelf. So who knows? No one knows, but it just feels to me like the timing is all coming together. We're 9 days away from the election, and things can switch very fast. And I'm just kind of seeing it in my mind, one domino after another falling. Elon releases his evidence. The Supreme Court takes your case off the shelf. President Trump is back in the Oval Office behind that desk, sitting there and writing executive orders. I mean, you can just feel it all coming together. So I don't know, but I'm so excited to hear that you say that case is not dead. It can be taken off the shelf at any time. And walk us through, if you would. You're not trying to litigate whether there was fraud in the election or a stolen election. Walk me through what the case is all about. Your case is about why didn't we just take a 10-day pause to make sure the results are valid? And that's a violation of the oath.
Exactly. When you have 140 plus members of Congress saying we need to investigate this, you slow down and you investigate. It wouldn't have stopped. It wouldn't have slowed down anything, really. So it was very important that they did that. Now, when Amy Coney Barrett was interviewed for her U.S. Supreme Court justice position, she was asked what the 5 protections in the First Amendment were. She remembered, what was it, religion and assembly and speech and the press, and she couldn't remember the 5th one. And the 5th one is the protected right that hasn't been exercised by America since the 1800s. And that's petition for redress of grievances. And the last time it was in the 1800s, it helped abolish slavery. And that's what this is. This is another opportunity for America to sign their own personal petition for redress of grievances. And it's also a petition of the Supreme Court for a rehearing. Now, the Supreme Court can take a case off the shelf and under their jurisdiction or their prerogatives, whatever, they can actually keep it a sealed case. They do not need to even make a public announcement about it. And they can do several things. I'm asking for several reliefs. They could simply get rid of the absolute immunity by remanding it back to federal court. They could just say, look, we're going to overturn the lower court's decision. Let's send this back to the federal courts so they can go ahead with investigations. And a former member of Congress felt like that's what would be the best thing to do. It's because it would make available an opportunity to serve interrogatories and questions and depositions on all the defendants, finding out why did these individuals reject this opportunity to investigate when they should have done that. And so it could, that would, and then Congress, he felt like Congress would probably get involved with that too. So that's something they could do as well, but they could do something more immediate and serious than that as well. So the option is there, and now it's my job to invite America to become aware of this and to take action and become take part in this second opportunity in America's history to sign a petition for redress of grievances to straighten out this mess.
Yeah, absolutely. And Loy, what would, practically speaking, if they did pull this case off the shelf and ruled on it, what would happen? I think I've heard you say in the past, for violating the oath of office, we could see 300 some members of Congress just removed from office right away, or what? I mean, we're 4 years later now from the damage being done. What would happen if they did all of a sudden we open up the news tomorrow and they've ruled in your favor? What does the world look like?
And they can do several things. They have several options. They could do something that's drastic as creating a list, and they can decide who's to be on that list of credentials to be canceled. And they could have the U.S. Marshal Service deliver that to the Sergeant at Arms, and the Sergeant at Arms would be required by law, and if he didn't do it, he could go to jail. He could be required to cancel certain credentials. Then the states would be notified, and they would quickly replace those vacancies. So it could happen in a really smooth transition. It could happen very quickly and smoothly, and a lot of people wouldn't even know what was happening. So it wouldn't need to cause a great big revolutionary type of event. And so they can. There's several things they can do, and they can pick and choose which defendants they would do certain things with.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Well, let me share my screen here because it is so important. There is, if you're listening to this, there's a lot that you can do to help. You are not just a silent observer here. We need your help. This is Loy's website at loybrunson.com. And you can go here. This is where you can start. Well, maybe I'll let you talk about it. Loy, what can they do on this website?
Yeah, I think you can click on, let's see, if you go up above, I think there's a menu at the top. And I can't see it, it's too small, but there should be something about a SCOTUS letter or something.
Got it right here.
Click on that, and then you can watch that video, and that'll give you some instructions. And then it should be pretty self-explanatory what you can do to sign a letter that's already been prepared that will go to a fulfillment company that prints it out and puts it in an individual envelope with postage and sends it individually with a picture of your signature. Or you can also download the letter and sign it and print it and sign it and send a copy to me and also a copy to the Supreme Court. Now, there's another option too. There's another petition for redress of grievances, and that's to expose the Federal Reserve. Remember, Tucker Carlson, before he was fired, said, hey, when $1 trillion is created out of thin air, why are we being taxed? That's a huge, important question. And so the other letter to Congress is about the Federal Reserve. It just, in a few little paragraphs, explains the problem there. So you can take a look at that and see if you'd like to participate in letting Congress know and exposing it to Congress, because a lot of members of Congress don't even understand it, and start pushing back against this crazy notion that we've all accepted, borrowing money into existence. And that's actually the system that we're following right now. The Federal Reserve System is a nonprofit. We're not supposed to be borrowing money into existence. It should be a wire transfer as profit to the Treasury, not tax debt for the taxpayer. That's going to be exposed, and that's going to be fantastic.
Oh, I love that. I didn't even realize you were doing that, but that is probably, if you really boiled it down and got to the root of everything, the central banks, the Federal Reserve Bank, is probably at the root cause, if not the root cause, of almost everything evil that we see right now in government, if you ask me.
You nailed it. You nailed it. That is absolutely it. And it can be stopped when it's exposed. And that's what this is about, exposing it. So you're exposing it to Congress. And then if you invite your friends and relatives to do it, then it's exposing it to them. And exposure is powerful.
So, I think a lot of people are, rightfully so, they're so busy with their own lives, their families, kids, school, sports, everything. Maybe you're watching an NFL game on Sunday just to relax. People don't have any idea what the Federal Reserve Bank is. Their eyes might glaze over when they hear it, but it is not federal. It's not a federal agency. It's not part of our government. It is a foreign entity to our government. Number one, the word reserve. It has no reserves. It prints the money whenever it wants to. It is not a bank. So all three words in the name Federal Reserve Bank, none of them are true, but it makes you think that it's this wonderful institution that's part of our government and it's working on our behalf. Our founding fathers, and you can speak to this a lot more than I can, Loy, but our founding fathers fought hard against a central bank. And for many decades, we did not have a central bank in this country until they pushed it through on Christmas Eve one year. But that's another story. But it's always amazed me, Loy. We talk about paying off the national debt, and if we could just balance the budget a little bit, we could pay off the debt. They loan us our own money at 2% interest.
That's right.
The math on that is there's no mathematical way to ever pay off the debt when all of your money comes into existence with 2% tax on it.
Well, we're billed for money that's created. I had a pretty good conversation with Stephen Moore. He was chief economics advisor for President Trump for 4 years. And I said, if we want to really simplify it, if you could effectively enforce the nonprofit status of the Federal Reserve System, which owns the Federal Reserve banks. It's the Federal Reserve System is the mother organization that's privately owned. If you could enforce their nonprofit status, it would come the money back, not just money, but the wealth that they've acquired by embezzling our own money would exceed not only the federal debt, but the federal liability. They have created trillions of dollars, and they have actually pretty cleverly invested in global entities where they have a huge amount of wealth that really belongs to the taxpayer. So what this could mean is our standard of living would go through the roof if this happened.
Yeah, and you say to the best of my knowledge, there's not even transparency on who actually owns the Federal Reserve System, is there? I mean,
Well, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 has a list of. There's some information you can find on the internet. The Federal Reserve Act. You'll see what the original families were, and I believe in the charter they made it very clear that you could not sell your shares in the Federal Reserve System. And so they've been able to buy up politicians and buy up media and buy up protection. So we allow this to go on, and they're pretty powerful. And so they really pulled one over on the American public. And like you said, we can't continue to borrow money into existence, no matter how prosperous America is. We'll never get out of debt. And so we need to expose this one. And that letter is a great way to see what's happening, because it's really simplified, so you can find out yourself in simple terms what the Federal Reserve System is doing, and then you can do something by sending a letter to Congress to make them aware that we're aware. And a lot of members of Congress are unaware of it.
Yeah. When we talk about they or the deep state or the powers that be, the people that we see are the Obamas or the Clintons, or we all know Kamala is just an empty vessel puppet. But these families that are listed in the charter, are these the real people pulling the strings behind the scenes?
I believe so. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And these others are just puppets.
Yep. And you talk about how it's supposed to be a nonprofit. I believe it's true that it has never once been audited.
There's never been a real thorough audit. It's so weird. During an 8-month time, there's a congressional hearing video on YouTube that shows a congressman questioning some representative of the Federal Reserve, asking where $9 trillion went. And the answer was, well, it's not part of, you're not being taxed for it. So what has happened is $9 trillion is created and distributed to foreign entities, and the Federal Reserve refused to identify who the recipients were of $9 trillion over a several-month period. And that's like mind-boggling that Congress hasn't jumped all over that, because $9 trillion can do a lot of damage, and that's just in a several-month period. What about the other trillions of dollars? And this is not money coming from the government. This is money going directly from the Federal Reserve System to these foreign entities. So we're not being taxed for it, but it's actual real money that's going to foreign entities that's being used to, just like you said, it's being used to destroy and to enslave us.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea you had this second letter writing campaign. That's fantastic. we'll make sure and get the links below this video, but it's loybrunson.com. And then you go right to the top of it there. You got a little menu at the top. There's 2 different letter campaigns. You can send both of them. And I think, Loy, is it a $2 donation needed to actually mail it?
Yeah, we're asking for a minimum $2 gift because what happens, it goes to a fulfillment company where we have to pay them to print it and fold it and put it in an envelope and pay for postage for each individual letter to go to.
Yeah, makes total sense. So Loy is not getting rich off your $2. This is he's put in a lot of service on this, and then if you want to do it yourself, you can save the $2 and print off the letter and mail it yourself too. So it's a great thing that you're doing there, Loy. I love it. I would encourage everybody, please get involved. It is not too late. And just like voting, you might think, well, my one letter doesn't matter. Your one letter plus all the other tens of thousands of letters will make a big difference. So I'm going to try and get this message as far and wide as we can. Please share this with people, share the video, share the link, and ask as many people as you can to participate, because these letters will make a difference with both the Supreme Court, who is going to receive them, and members of Congress. That's fantastic. Loy, let me share this other screen too. You have another website. Let's see. Let me do this one. Yeah. 7discoveries.com. That's the number 7discoveries.com. We've talked about this the last time you were on too, but I think a lot of people don't realize, number one, you and your brothers are not attorneys. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, but you're running circles around the people who are attorneys, and all you're doing is reading what the documents say. You're reading the Constitution, you're reading the Bill of Rights, and you're finding amazing discoveries, things that are written right into the documents that give us certain power as citizens, give us means of redress, like we talked about a little bit. But I'd love it if you'd talk a little bit about this website, 7 Discoveries, and the stuff that that is not taught in law schools, obviously, because no attorneys seem to be aware of it. They're not using it. They're not talking about it. If you can talk a little bit about some of the things you've discovered right in the documents that are hidden in plain sight, and I don't know why they aren't getting more attention.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. First of all, you can get an exact copy of what the Supreme Court has been reviewing. Perfect bound. That's what they suggest. So that's available at the website. You can order that.
That's
and
your case.
Yeah, it is. And also, I have a pocket constitution that's much more than that. As I started studying the Constitution with my understanding of the Federal Reserve System, I started connecting dots, and I couldn't believe it. I thought everyone knew this stuff. Then I found out that it's never been published. As a matter of fact, I met with the owners of the National Center for Constitutional Studies. I said, I've discovered some things. I can't find anyone else that has publicized this. And they said that, he says, we want to publish this too. You actually have made some discoveries. One of those discoveries is there is a clause in the Constitution that not only defines socialism, but prohibits it. Now, the first 10 amendments, it's pounded into us that they're the Bill of Rights. Well, the Continental Congress really defined the first 10 amendments as further declaratory and restrictive clauses to the Constitution. So if we look at the last line of the fifth, it's never been identified this way. It is really the definition of socialism and the prohibition of it, with the simple words, you can't have your private property, which includes your money, taken from you for public use without just compensation. Well, that's the definition of taxation too. So it opens up some questions about that. It gets into the Federal Reserve, where they're creating trillions of dollars. There's supposed to be profit for the Treasury, not tax burden, tax debt for the U.S. citizen. And so then there's another discovery that's in this book, and this has Q&A at the back. It has the congressional oath in the front inside cover. It has the 10 commandments in it. So this really is a book. If you have a pocket constitution, take that and put it in a safe place and replace it with this, because this is a weapon of knowledge. It has, like I said, it has questions and answers in the back. And it's another discovery is that there's an interpretation clause in the Constitution that demands the Constitution only be interpreted in ways that protect your God-given unalienable rights. And that's the 9th Amendment, one of those further declaratory restrictive clauses. It's one sentence. I suggest people just memorize that because it's so short. It goes like this. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In other words, any interpretation that is used from reading the Constitution to disparage your rights or deprive you of your rights is not a legal constitutional interpretation. So I thought that was pretty fantastic, and I thought other people knew about that. But this book is the first publication to ever show that and other discoveries that I put in there. So I highly recommend you go to Seven Discoveries and get that. And I have a special, I want to get them out there. It's perfect bound. It's a neat little book. And I'm asking $100 for 40 books in a priority mail package. So that's about half what it would cost if you were to print like 1,000 or a few hundred at a time of this book. So I'm making that available, and people are responding pretty positively to that. Let's see, quite a few just went out yesterday. So and I have plenty of those.
That's great.
So
Well,
those two things are available there.
that Ninth Amendment that you just read, and it's so short and simple, but no one seems to read it, and it seems to me as though that's violated every day by Congress. Every single day. Yeah.
Yes, because their oath is because they're hiding behind absolute immunity, and that's what this Supreme Court appeal is all about. It's about stripping them of absolute immunity, and the Supreme Court of the United States could simply overturn the lower court's decision, and then this would go into a full-blown investigation and discover why these members of Congress did not act in protecting us by launching an investigation. So that's one way that they could do something pretty major. So
I love it. I really, everybody should get a copy of that book. And I'm going to suggest something too. You got your letter writing campaigns, but I would suggest people get one of these 40 packs or get 5 of them or whatever you want to do, but get one for yourself and get some extras and mail a copy to your congressperson in your state or your federal congressperson. Send a copy to every single representative you have. They need to read this stuff.
Excellent idea.
Because they obviously aren't reading it. And so if they read your version, maybe they can get the Cliff's Notes and understand it a bit. But, we've got so few, I don't agree with everything he does, but Thomas Massey in Congress seems to be studying the Constitution and trying to apply it. But there just aren't many like him that have any clue what it even says. And somehow they're elected members of Congress. It's very scary.
Well, Congressman Matt Gaetz, I spent a few minutes with him at an event, and I gave him one, and he asked for one for Rand Paul.
Oh, wow!
So this is moving forward. This is going forward. My last printing was a little over 30,000 copies. So I have plenty of copies. So I've printed over 50,000 so far. So it's grown.
That's great. Well, everybody get one. Send them out. Get a pack and send it out to every representative you have. Send them to other members of Congress. Get them out there. Send them to your state governor. Just get them everywhere. Let's share them with your friends and family. Let's get this out here, because there's no sense in having laws on the books or having a constitution if it won't be read and if it won't be followed. It can say anything it wants. And we're seeing this in Canada, by the way. I had, Loy, I don't know if you know Pastor Pawlowski, Artur Pawlowski, on the show a couple weeks ago. He's the Canadian pastor who was arrested for opening his church during COVID. And he said, we have tremendous protections in our Constitution in Canada. The problem is they're being ignored, and we're dangerously close to that here in the United States.
Yeah. Well, Jesus says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And I think he would say, if you know the truth in the Constitution, then I can help you use it to keep yourself free, to make yourself free. And Thomas Jefferson said, the true corrective for constitutional abuse is education. And this little book is like years of connecting dots right there. Just in a few minutes, you can see like the clause that condemns socialism, the interpretation clause, and other great things that we should be aware of. So I'm really excited about that book, and people are getting excited about it and ordering them. So Loy, I haven't studied it nearly as much as you have, but the fact that our Constitution has stood for so many centuries as it has, and it's stood really well, stood the test of time. Written by people think of these founding fathers as these guys with half bald heads and wavy white hair because they're 80 years old. They're not. They were often in their 20s and 30s they were young men who, I mean, today we got people who can't write a full sentence in their 20s and 30s, but they wrote this masterful document. And it seems like, all credit to them for doing it, but it seems like something
even more so. It seems like a supernaturally inspired document in many ways. That is
And a lot
protected
of
this
them
country.
claim that there was divine intervention. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just and as you're uncovering these discoveries and putting them out there in a book, to see everything that was written in there so brilliantly, it really kind of blows your mind.
Thank you.
Well, this is great. We will we'll get this out to everybody. Anything? Let me open it up to anybody. I've been having so much fun chatting. I haven't been watching the comments, but if you have a question, our guest today is Lloyd Brunson, one of the 4 famous trumpet playing Brunson brothers, who you guys have a lot of history. Even before you started doing this, you were playing trumpet for Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show and on with Regis and Kathy Lee, I believe, if I remember correctly. And quite a history you guys have, even before doing this. So it's a pleasure to chat with you. And if you're listening with us, I see we've got several hundred people on, close to 1,000 people across all different socials. So if you have a question for Loy, go ahead and drop it in the chat anywhere that you're watching. I'll try and watch for those. Be happy to feature that, but I think he's answered a lot of it. I'd just like to go back and ask you as we wrap up, Loy, going back to your case. It's sitting on the shelf. They've denied a hearing, but it's still there. They can pull it off at any point. Realistically, what do you think might happen next? I mean, do you have any idea, any inkling? Have you heard any rumblings from anybody? I know the clerk of court for a while. You were interacting with them or having some dealings with them, how they wouldn't file the case. But do you have any inclination at all about what we might see on this thing, or is it just going to be totally a surprise to you too?
Well, I really think that the public awareness factor is super important to the justices. They need America to wake up and support it. So it doesn't just happen without people not realizing what happened. And so as America is made aware of this, that power, that you could say that would be the court of public opinion that really gives the Supreme Court the power and support that they need. But there's a lot of timing involved here too. And so we can only speculate. So I don't have any really special information that I could share that would say what's going to happen. But I just feel this sense of urgency that America needs to be given an opportunity to hear about this. And so I'm working in ways to help the mainstream media, conservative media, to become aware of this too. So we have some pretty high profile people that are already supportive. And so my goal is to really push it out there and help people understand it, because it's an education as well as an opportunity for the Supreme Court to act in a very favorable way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody needs to do their part. Let's get those letters going. Loy, if you don't mind, I saw you posted this. I think this is from you. Is this your video here?
I think it is. Yeah, you want to play it?
Yeah. Do you mind? Maybe we can play this as we end up. But it says it's go time, and let's watch this together.
Great.
More than 13,000 illegal aliens convicted of murder are now in the United States. Oh, and they're not in custody. I'm sorry.
Go, baby. Do it now. Take over through the United States of America.
It turns out it wasn't the Russians we needed to be worried about so much meddling in our elections. It was the highest-ranking law enforcement and intelligence officials in our land.
Take over through the constitutional republic of the United States of America.
Go time. The emergency powers of the Supreme Court of the United States. Your click is mightier than the sword. Click it now.
The Supreme Court of the United States truly is the most powerful branch of government. And right now they have the most powerful case that they can execute that can actually fix all the problems immediately.
Essentially, by not looking into allegations of election fraud, the officials who voted to confirm the 2020 election essentially broke their oath in office.
The Supreme Court of the United States, well, right now they have their Rule 11 Supreme Court petition that is the most powerful case the Supreme Court has ever received. And what this means is they can fix the problems immediately that no other agency of government can fix. And with your help, they can do it in a more timely fashion. And what I'm asking you to do is sign the letter that's already been prepared to you that can go to the Supreme Court. So do that now.
Basically, this would be the Supreme Court voting to just completely purge the U.S. government and reform the U.S. government.
Never before have we seen the Supreme Court have as much power as they have right now.
President Trump last August 19th supported this letter campaign, and you today can support it with your signature.
If this goes through, every single one of them, 385 members of Congress, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, former Vice President Mike Pence, and 385 members of Congress would be removed from office. This would completely change the U.S. government.
Your click is mightier than the soul.
We all have an opportunity now to be a part of history in the making, by signing our letters to the Supreme Court supporting the only Rule 11, emergency Rule 11, that they've ever allowed. So please take this opportunity, join together, and be a part of history, and let's get millions of letters to the Supreme Court. Sign your letter today, please, and get your kids and your friends to do the same. Thank you.
You can do it now. Save you.
Oh, it's muted. That's so good. I love that. The time is now. You know, it's felt like we've been in a holding pattern for these 4 years, but I would just urge everybody, don't get complacent, don't get sleepy, don't lose it right when the time is right to strike. And now's the time to strike. We need those letters. We need everybody more tuned in now than ever before. It would be horrible to be focused and lose it right at the end.
Now, people ask if they've already signed a letter, could they do it again? Absolutely. This is a second wave, a second knock on that door. So it's absolutely fine if they have signed before, if they want to do it again.
Oh,
Definitely.
that's great.
And the congressional letter too would be great too. So
That's great. Yeah, let's do both. I love them both, but I didn't know about that Federal Reserve letter, so that's fantastic. Boy, I'm pulling up this article we covered a month ago now. Feels like yesterday. Things are moving so fast, but I don't know if you saw this, but that is circulating around Congress right now. The headline is U.S. lawmakers plan for a possible mass casualty event. And basically, it's all about what happens if most of Congress is knocked out and they need to replace 300 or 400 members. This is mainstream news. This is happening right now. I don't know if you've seen that, but it kind of makes me smile. You know, they cloak it under a mass casualty event, some sort of tragedy or something. Maybe weather related, nuclear, who knows? But I just wonder if they're not trying to get a backup plan for when this case goes live.
it certainly suggests that, doesn't it? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, that's just one thing that makes me. I just kind of look at this, and I cover the news, on a daily basis for my job, and you can just kind of see all of the pieces falling together at the same time. And what are the odds that after? I've never heard of this before ever in my lifetime. You mean to tell me that Congress has never thought about this before? Why is it so urgent that they need to they need to get this new plan in place right now? So how funny is that?
That's very interesting. Yeah, they choose their own replacements if they replace something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, listen, this has been fantastic. Thank you for coming on. I think I just messaged you yesterday or Friday and said, hey, I heard your case is still alive. Can you come on and chat? And you said, how soon can we do it? So going live today on a Sunday, October 27th. It's fantastic. It's 9 days before the election, and we're going to do our part to help out the case, but really to help out the country. And you've done so much, Loy. I want to end this by saying thank you for all that you and your brothers have done. I mean, no one's paying you to do this. No one has asked you to do this. You guys just saw a need and you jumped in, and you might end up saving the republic over it. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you and all your followers out there. You guys are amazing. I appreciate your support.
Yep, you got it. You've got our support. We've got 5 million people that tune in with us every month. So you've got at least 5 million people here that have your back, and we're going to get those letters out.
Fantastic.
All right. Thanks, Lloyd. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Noah. Bye.